Most drivers think an oil change is the ultimate act of engine protection. But in reality, most oil changes slowly damage your engine because one crucial step gets skipped every single time. The worst part? It's completely avoidable. Just 15 minutes of prep before draining your oil can prevent sludge buildup, overheating failures, seized components, and even a bill that can top $6,000. Do this the right way, and your new oil actually stays clean, lubricates better, and dramatically extends your engine's life. And stick with me until the end, because the final step is what turns a tired 100,000-mile engine into a 300,000-mile workhorse. Let's get started. Step 15. Inspect your oil cap and filler neck. Almost nobody does this, yet it's one of the fastest ways to understand what's happening inside your engine. Pop the oil cap and look closely. If you see a brown or tan, paste-like coating under the cap, that's moisture contamination from condensation. It means your engine isn't reaching proper operating temperature, usually because of constant short trips. When the engine can't burn off moisture, your oil degrades early and loses protective qualities. If instead you see thick, dark varnish, that's oxidized oil, usually caused by extended intervals or heavy driving conditions that break the oil down faster than expected. Before your next oil change, inspect the cap, find any contamination, and fix the underlying issue before adding new oil. Clean the cap and the filler neck thoroughly so old residue doesn't wash into your fresh oil. A clean filler system ensures the new oil starts its life in the best possible environment. Step 14. Check the dipstick tube for sludge. Pull the dipstick out and use a flashlight to inspect the tube. If the inside walls have sludge buildup, the rest of the engine has it too. And if you ignore it, that sludge will immediately contaminate your fresh oil as soon as it circulates. Not long ago, a rideshare driver came in with a late 2010s Camry that had over 150,000 miles. He changed his oil every 5,000 miles like clockwork, but the dipstick tube was coated with sludge. The reason? Short, constant city trips of 3 to 5 miles. The engine never got hot enough to burn off moisture. If you see sludge, plan multiple short-interval flushes. Don't expect clean oil to survive in a dirty engine. Step 13. Inspect your drain plug and crush washer before you drain anything. It seems basic, but it prevents leaks that can waste expensive synthetic oil and starve the engine. Look closely at the drain plug threads. If they're worn or stripped, fix the issue with a thread repair insert before the oil change. Then check the crush washer. Many quick service shops reuse them, but they're designed to seal only once. A flattened washer becomes a perfect leak path. A simple $2 washer can prevent losing half a quart of oil in a few days, which happens more often than drivers realize. Step 12. Check your oil level and condition at least a week before your scheduled change. This is one of the smartest habits you can build. If the level is low, even by half a quart, that's a sign something's happening inside the engine. And if you're losing more than half a quart between changes, you're not dealing with a normal condition. You're dealing with oil consumption or leakage that needs to be diagnosed. Read the oil's appearance too. Dark and opaque is normal after a few thousand miles. But if it looks milky or like chocolate milk, coolant is mixing with your oil. That usually means a head gasket or oil cooler issue, and it's a repair that only gets more expensive the longer it's ignored. Checking level and condition early gives you time to act before the scheduled service, not after the damage is already done. And this is only the beginning. The next steps build on each other and will completely change the way your engine ages. Stay with it. Step 11. Drive your car hard for 20 minutes. It sounds backwards, but stay with me. 2 days before your oil change, take your car on a solid highway run and get the engine genuinely hot. I'm talking sustained RPMs above 3,000 for at least 15 minutes. The reason is simple. Heat suspends contaminants. Sludge, varnish, carbon residue, everything that normally sits at the bottom of the engine gets lifted and circulated when the oil thins out and moves quickly. You want all that contamination floating in the oil when you drain it, not glued to metal surfaces where it will continue damaging the engine. A technician I know once shared the perfect example. He had a customer who always changed oil early in the morning, before driving anywhere. The oil was cold, thick, and still. All the contaminants had settled overnight. Every oil change removed the cleanest part of the oil sitting at the bottom, while the dirty residue stayed inside the engine. By 80,000 miles, the buildup was severe despite following routine intervals. On the other hand, customers who arrived after a commute had hot oil, thin viscosity, and debris fully suspended, meaning far more contamination left the engine. Independent tests confirm this. Draining hot oil removes up to 40% more contaminants than draining cold oil. Over the life of your vehicle, that difference can easily add up to another 100,000 miles of usable engine life. So 2 days before your change, take that spirited highway drive. Get everything up to temperature. Prepare the oil so it carries out maximum debris when you drain it. Step 10. Add engine flush, but do it correctly. Engine flush products spark endless debate. Some mechanics rely on them. Others claim they're pointless or even risky. The truth is right in the middle. When used properly, at the right mileage, flush additives can dissolve years of stubborn deposits that normal oil changes never touch. But timing and method matter. Most people pour in a flush, idle for 5 minutes, and drain it. That barely scratches the surface. The chemicals need real circulation time. Here's the proper method. Add engine flush to oil that's at least 2,000 miles old but less than 1,000 miles from replacement. Then drive normally for 1 to 200 miles. This gives detergents time to break down deposits gradually instead of shocking the system. But a warning, never use heavy flush treatments on an engine with thick, neglected sludge. Breaking loose large chunks all at once can clog oil passages and cause catastrophic damage. In severely neglected engines, multiple gentle flush cycles with short intervals are safer than an aggressive one. Step 9. Replace your oil filter early during the flush. This is a technique few drivers even know exists. If your engine has heavy deposits or you're running a strong cleaning cycle, replace the oil filter halfway through the flush mileage. Here's why. As the flush dissolves old deposits, that debris ends up in your filter. Eventually, the filter can clog and go into bypass mode, forcing unfiltered oil through the engine, exactly what you don't want during a cleaning process. A recent example, a teacher came in with a late 2010 CR-V for what she expected to be a simple oil change. The oil was darker and more contaminated than normal, so I recommended a flush cycle. We added the flush at around 5,800 miles. After she drove roughly 150 miles, she returned and we replaced only the filter. The filter we removed was completely packed with dissolved buildup. We installed a fresh one and had her drive another 150 miles before performing the full oil change. The second filter came out far cleaner, and the engine ran noticeably smoother. In a single flush cycle with a mid-interval filter swap, we removed more contamination than a standard oil change would have extracted in years. If you're planning a flush, plan a mid-cycle filter replacement as well. It dramatically increases the amount of debris you remove from the engine. And that matters, because the next step addresses what many mechanics quietly call the silent engine killer. Step 8. Clean your PCV system. The positive crankcase ventilation system is one of the most overlooked maintenance items on modern American engines, and it directly affects oil life, oil cleanliness, and long-term engine health. A clogged PCV valve can cut oil life by 50% or more. Fresh synthetic oil can turn dark almost immediately because blow-by gases get trapped inside the crankcase instead of being vented out properly. A couple of months ago, a college student brought in his 2016 Mazda 3. He was religious about oil changes, every 3,000 miles, full synthetic, but the oil turned black before hitting 1,000 miles. Something was contaminating it fast. The diagnosis was simple: a completely clogged PCV valve and restricted hose. Excess crankcase pressure was forcing blow-by gases to stay in the oil, accelerating contamination. We replaced the PCV valve, $28, and cleaned the hoses. On his next oil change, the oil stayed clean for over 4,000 miles. Same engine, same oil, same driving habits, just a functioning PCV system. That $28 part doubled the life of every $65 synthetic oil change. Before your next service, Pull the PCV valve, shake it, and listen for the internal check valve rattling. No rattle means it's clogged. Replace it. Also inspect the hoses. Some collapse internally with age, even if they look fine on the outside. Replace any that feel soft or suspicious. A clean PCV system keeps fresh oil cleaner for longer and reduces pressure-related oil leaks. But clean oil won't help if the engine isn't burning fuel correctly. Step 7. Clean your MAF sensor. It might sound unrelated to oil changes, but a dirty mass airflow sensor can absolutely destroy oil life. The MAF tells the ECU how much air the engine is inhaling. When it's dirty, the readings go off, the ECU enriches the fuel mixture, and the engine runs rich. Too much fuel means incomplete combustion, and that extra fuel washes down the cylinder walls and ends up in your oil. Fuel dilution reduces viscosity, weakens protection, and shortens oil life dramatically. Last month, a taxi driver came in with his 2018 Toyota Camry. His oil was breaking down way too fast. An oil analysis showed 5.2% fuel dilution, extremely high. We checked the MAF sensor and found it coated with dust and oil residue. That dirty MAF was triggering rich mixtures, sending unburned fuel into the crankcase. We cleaned the MAF with dedicated MAF cleaner. Never use brake cleaner, which can permanently damage the sensor. After cleaning it, we reset the fuel trims and changed the oil. His next analysis showed fuel dilution under 1%, normal levels. The oil stayed cleaner and lasted longer. An $8 can of MAF cleaner prevented ongoing contamination. Before your next oil change, clean your MAF sensor so your fresh oil doesn't immediately get diluted by excess fuel. Step 6. Perform a fuel system treatment. Your fuel injectors are responsible for atomizing fuel into a fine mist. When injectors are dirty, the spray pattern breaks down. Instead of a consistent mist, you get uneven streams and droplets. That leads to incomplete combustion, which means unburned fuel slipping past the piston rings and ending up in your oil. That fuel dilution thins the oil and creates contamination that accelerates engine wear. Before your next oil change, add a quality fuel system cleaner to a full tank of gas about 100 miles beforehand. Drive those miles normally to let the cleaner break down deposits inside the injectors. Cleaner injectors mean better combustion, less fuel blow-by, and cleaner oil that lasts much longer. But even perfect atomization won't help if the engine isn't running at proper temperature. Step 5. Verify your thermostat is working. If your engine doesn't reach and maintain normal operating temperature, it simply can't burn fuel completely. A cool-running engine runs rich by design. That rich mixture pushes unburned fuel into the oil, degrading viscosity and shortening oil life. A stuck-open thermostat is one of the most common causes of an engine that never warms up. It sounds harmless, but it's terrible for oil longevity. Cold engines create sludge, moisture contamination, and fuel dilution, issues that proper engine temperature normally burns off. Before your next oil change, watch your temperature gauge during a normal drive. It should rise to the center of the gauge and stay there consistently. If the engine stays cool or fluctuates too much, replace the thermostat, typically around $40, before changing your oil. Putting fresh oil in a cool-running engine is like pouring money down the drain. It will contaminate quickly and lose protection. Proper temperature protects your oil, but the next step ensures the cooling system itself isn't contaminating it. Step 4. Pressure test your cooling system. Internal coolant leaks are one of the most expensive forms of engine contamination you can face. A failing head gasket or a hairline crack in the cylinder head can let coolant seep into the oil. When that happens, it forms a thick, milky sludge that wipes out bearings in no time. And here's the problem. You often can't see these leaks from the outside. Many only appear when the system is under pressure. That's why the period right before an oil change is the ideal moment to run a cooling system pressure test. Just yesterday, a real estate agent brought in her 2017 Mazda CX-5 for routine service. During the inspection, I noticed her coolant was low, yet there were 0 visible leaks. So, we hooked up the pressure tester. The system wouldn't hold pressure. That meant something inside was leaking. We followed up with a combustion gas test. It came back positive. Exhaust gases were entering the cooling system. Early stage head gasket failure. It wasn't blown yet, but it was starting to leak internally. An oil analysis even showed small traces of coolant in the crankcase. She had two choices: repair it now for about $1,800, or wait for it to fail completely and face a $4,500 repair bill, plus the potential of catastrophic engine damage. She fixed it right away. Problem solved before it turned into a disaster. If we had simply drained the oil and moved on, the contamination would have continued, and within a few thousand miles she likely would have needed a whole new engine. A simple 10-minute pressure test before an oil change can literally save your engine. But even a perfect cooling system won't help if you ignore your ignition system. Step 3. Inspect your spark plugs. Worn-out plugs lead to incomplete combustion, and incomplete combustion leaves unburned fuel behind. That fuel slips past the piston rings and goes straight into your oil, thinning it out and reducing its ability to protect your engine. A lot of automakers claim spark plugs are good for 100,000 miles or more. In real-world U.S. driving, stop-and-go traffic, short trips, and long idling times, most plugs start degrading well before that. Around 60,000 miles, many are already worn enough to affect combustion. A Toyota advisor told me about a customer with a 2018 RAV4. She followed the factory schedule exactly. Spark plugs at 120,000 miles. But at around 85,000 miles, the engine began burning oil and running rough. An oil analysis showed major fuel dilution. When they pulled the plugs, every gap had worn to nearly double the spec. The engine wasn't firing cleanly, and the excess fuel was ending up in the oil. They replaced the plugs at 85,000 miles. Within one oil change cycle, fuel dilution vanished, the rough idle disappeared, and the oil consumption dropped dramatically. Lesson learned: don't blindly trust extended plug intervals. Before your next oil change, pull a plug and check it. If the gap has grown more than 0.005 inch from spec, replace the full set. Good spark plugs mean clean combustion. Clean combustion means clean oil. But even perfect combustion won't save you if your driving habits add moisture and fuel to the crankcase. Step 2. Take your car on a long highway drive. This isn't the same as driving hard before a drain. This is about evaporating moisture and light contaminants that build up from short trip driving. Before your next oil change, take the car out for a solid 30 to 45 minutes of steady highway cruising. That gets the oil hot enough to cook out moisture, acids, and residues. A fleet manager told me they implemented a rule across their delivery vehicles. Every truck must drive at least 20 highway miles a day before scheduled service. That single change increased average engine life by 35,000 miles across their fleet.
Why?
Because the long drive evaporates contamination before the fresh oil goes in. Fresh oil works best in a dry, clean crankcase, not one full of moisture from weeks of short hops. One good highway drive can remove more moisture than multiple cold oil changes. But none of this matters if you make the last mistake on the list. Step 1. Never change oil on a cold engine. This is the single biggest error DIYers make. Oil must be drained hot, fully hot, at operating temperature. Cold oil is thick. Contaminants settle at the bottom. Sludge sticks to the inside of the engine. A cold drain leaves a large amount of dirty oil behind, which immediately contaminates the fresh oil. Hot oil is thin, fast-flowing, and carries suspended contaminants with it. A hot drain pulls dramatically more waste out of the engine. A mechanic friend of mine ran a side-by-side experiment using two identical engines. One was drained cold, the other drained hot. The cold engine lost about 80% of its oil and only 60% of its contamination. The hot drain removed 92% of the oil and 85% of the contaminants. Multiply that difference across 10 oil changes, and the cold-drained engine keeps far more sludge trapped inside. If you change your own oil, drive the car first. Get it fully hot. Then drain it immediately. If a shop does your oil, don't drop your car off cold in the morning. Drive it there so the oil is at the right temperature. That one difference alone can add up to 100,000 extra miles of engine life. You just learned several steps that can maximize the effectiveness of every oil change and dramatically extend engine longevity. Every tip works together: a clean PCV, proper airflow readings, correct temperature, clean combustion, and a hot drain. If you picked up even one new piece of information today, hit like and subscribe. There's a video on your screen right now. Click it, and I'll meet you there with advice that could save you thousands in repairs.